You remember when you were a kid and you thought your parents were old, maybe your grandparents were old. You thought someone who was 20, 30, 40, or 50 was old. You thought people over 60 were senior citizens. Now think about how old you are today. When you were 7 or 8 years old, did you think that person was old? Do you consider yourself old? Do you consider yourself over the hill? I hope not, because none of that is really true. What happened when you were a youth is you did not have the perception, the experience, and the empathy necessary to put yourself in the other person's shoes at whatever age they are. Now that you're that age, you have the ability to do that. Why is that important? We're going to talk about it on the podcast today. It's Saturday. I'm in the office. You know what that means. The Saturday Morning Hustle podcast. Outworking the competition while they still sleep. The next big thing is not happening Monday through Friday. Getting yourself to the next level does not happen 9 to 5. We got to come in early. We got to stay late. We got to work on the weekend. That's what we're doing right now. And we're going to talk about the fact that experience, perception, and if you're able to add empathy, can give you great perspective on what the world is really all about and how it fits, benefits, and works with you, your situation, what you're trying to accomplish, what you're trying to achieve, etc. So again, remember when you were a kid, you thought someone who was 20, 30, 40, 50 years old was old because you did not understand how long lifelong really is. You had a short attention span because you had a short lifespan. Everything was more immediate to you because you'd only been on this planet 5, 10, maybe 15 years. As you got into your 20s, into your 30s, into your 40s, maybe into your 50s and beyond, you do have a completely different perception because you have a different perspective, because you're not gauging in a tenth of your life or a quarter of your life or half of your life, understanding that 100 years is a viable life for a person. So how is it someone is old at 30 or 40 and even 50 if you want to call it middle age, because it's halfway between 0 and 100? What does this have to do with business though? What does this have to do with entrepreneurism? What does this have to do with success, which is what we typically talk about on this podcast? Well, first, right off the bat, I'm going to give a shout out to my 17-year-old nephew, Tyler. It's his birthday this week. That's what prompted this conversation, this thought process in my head. Big shout out to you, man. Happy birthday. Why is that important? He's 17. He's youthful. He has every bit of his life in front of him. Young people think that every bit of the first 10 or 15 or 20 years of their life is where everything comes from. I got news for Tyler and everyone else out there. So much more happens and so much more understanding of yourself comes after 20, after 30, even 40 and 50. For someone who is over 50 and completely rediscovering myself on a regular basis, there is definitely a time in my life where I was 7, 8, 10 years old where I said, 50? My gosh, that's old. And it's not. It's completely in how you feel. Simply that adage that age is just a number is absolutely true, but because attitude, effort, and all the things we talk about here on the regular part of this podcast is what's more important. It's not about the number that's written down next to your name. It's how much effort are you putting in? How much learning are you doing? Have you an attitude of continual learning, continual improvement, continually bettering yourself, expanding yourself, and changing the perception, adding your experiences, and applying empathy to everything you do? It's easier to understand that someone is an old person. When you're that age, you have empathy for people your age because you have the experience, because you have lived your life to that point. You've done the same things. You're there now, and you know how it feels, which it doesn't feel old, hopefully. If things are going right for you, you don't feel old. And if you do, just change your attitude. You can apply your own rules. That is how you change perception. Your perception of time, of success, of experience. There are a lot of people who think if they're not rich and famous and successful by 20 or by 30, that they've somehow failed. If you haven't gotten married by a certain age, if you haven't found that life partner, if you haven't settled on a career that you'll stick into for the rest of your life by a certain age, these things are considered to be unsuccessful or even failures. Let me tell you right now, they're not. I can tell you that because I have experience and perception. I have perspective that is different because I've lived life, I've had experiences, and I perceive things differently because I'm continually learning, adapting myself. The continual change, the continual growth process is where success comes from. Success comes from opportunities created by change. Management of that change is how you become successful. I've said it to you before on this podcast. I've definitely had that conversation on my business podcast, the Golden Group Strategic Growth Podcast. It's about change. What is change? Change is growth. What do you do when you're a young person to an older person? You grow, but not just growing in the number next to your name, growing in experience, growing in education, growing in perception, growing your perspective because you're a lifelong learner. Then when you apply empathy, when you have empathy for people who are older than you and are going through different things, when you have empathy for people who are younger than you, going through different things, understanding people younger than you are not growing up, not having that same experience at the same age that you did at that age, unless it was a year ago. But even then, think about it. How much have things changed over the last year or two? So if you're older than someone else, their experiences are different than you had the experience. But change is natural. Embracing that change is growth. Growth is where we get to better places. It's where we get to be more of a person, more of a professional, more of an entrepreneur, because we grow. We add experience, we add empathy, we add the perception and the change in perspective. When you do all of that, you're not just growing in age, maybe you're growing in height, but you're growing as a person, as a professional, as a citizen, someone who is giving something to the world of value. Hopefully you're getting paid for that thing that you create of value, and it's a fair exchange. It's a win-win exchange. It's a good for both parties type scenarios. That's what we're looking for in life. That's what we want out of our careers and our personal life. But remember, age is just a number. You get to write your own story. That story will change. Just because you're not where you expected to be at whatever age you're at, just because your career path didn't take the path you expected it to, just because you didn't go in a straight line from A to B, doesn't make any part of that or you a failure. It just simply is how it goes for everyone. It doesn't happen the way you expect. You can make the greatest plans, but those plans are going to have to change. And you're going to have to grow with that process. You're going to have a different perspective because you have a different perception, a different experience, and applying empathy. All of this works in a circle, and it continually happens. You just get better at it. You do more of it, and you have more experience, more background, more knowledge, more memories to help you put yourself in a better place every time you wake up in the morning. Every single day that you get to do it again, you get to be a better person. You get to grow. Now remember, no one is guaranteed that they'll wake up tomorrow. I'm not trying to bring you down. It's the old adage, expire or retire. Whether you quit or you just aren't able to do what you do now, whether it's professionally, for your family, for your friends, for your community, you have to develop yourself as well as possible. Create the impact you can as much as possible while you're capable. Give back as much as possible. Teach others, mentor others, help other people grow themselves, change their perceptions, change their perspectives, give them experience that you have as you continue to get experience. Be a mentor and be mentored to. Continual lifelong learning. And this is the most important part. This is how it all comes together. By applying that empathy, by applying understanding of the differences in other people's situations, you allow everyone to be themselves and to be a partner to you, to be a collaborator to you, for all of us to contribute to everything around us. Every person, every group, every community, our country, civilization as a whole. It all comes together if you are willing to not just grow older, but grow as a person, as a professional, as a member of society, as someone who gives back as much as you are getting given to. It was an awkward way of putting it, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed. Don't ever give yourself the idea that you're over the hill. You're not old and you're not old enough, or you're too old to do something. Simply do what makes sense for you in your situation, because everyone's situation is different. Understanding that is empathy. All of this collaborates and goes together. So one last time, big shout out to my nephew for inspiring this conversation today, turning 17 this week. Life is very different for that young man at 17 than it was when I was 17 back in the 1980 somethings. That's a good thing and a bad thing. I'm not jealous of all the technology and all the advantages he has today, because there were things we did as kids that he didn't get experience as a kid as well. Obviously, anyone under a certain age now have a good part of their life affected by COVID and the other things as well. We all are affected by the things around us. You just have to do a good job of moving better with it. Take the good with the bad. Be inspired by others. Be happy for them. Don't be jealous of the advantages they have, because it's simply a difference in the experience. Let them do that. Be inspired by young people, what they're doing today. Do not be jealous of them. Do not be down on the baby boomers versus the Gen X and the Gen Y and the Gen Z, etc. Skip all of that. Find the humanity in it and do what young people do. Young people are optimistic. Young people assume other people are good people. Young people have their whole life ahead of them, and so they think in unlimited terms. So no matter how old you are, think in unlimited terms. Understand you have possibly years and years and years and decades in front of you, but tomorrow isn't guaranteed, so you can't wait. Get up, get to work, get to achieving that thing that you describe as success, the thing that makes you happy, the thing that fulfills you in your life. And then eventually the situation will change and you will grow right along with it. That is my hope for you. That's the conversation today. I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in each and every week on the podcast. Please leave a comment, leave a review, share this with a friend, especially if they're much older or much younger than you, or if they simply just need to expand their perception of what age is, what experience is, and what a success journey looks like. So do that. I would appreciate it so much. Make sure you get your Saturday Morning Hustle, Entrepreneur AF, and Coffee and Donuts swag at the swag store at SaturdayMorningHustle.com. Follow and engage us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, the Saturday Morning Hustle Facebook fan page as well. Don't forget, check out the latest bonus episode of the Professional Balance Series bonus material I put out the last Monday of every month. There's a new one up right now. Check it out as well. It's Saturday. I'm in the office. You know what that means. The Saturday Morning Hustle. This podcast is for anyone willing to come in early, stay late, and work on the weekend to be successful. See you next week.
Saturday Morning Hustle. Saturday Morning Hustle. Saturday Morning Hustle. Wake up and keep chasing your dreams.